There is something about you that makes hell nervous. Something about your life that makes the enemy uncomfortable. You are not ordinary. You are not average. You were born with an assignment. And when the anointing of God rests upon your life, you become a threat to the kingdom of darkness. There comes a time in your life when you begin to notice that the battles you face are not ordinary. You wonder why things are harder for you than for others. You question why people come against you when you have done nothing to deserve it. But let me tell you something. This is not a coincidence. It is a sign that you are dangerously anointed. When you are anointed, you don't have to look for trouble. Trouble looks for you. The enemy does not attack empty vessels. He only fights what threatens his kingdom. If you are going through unusual attacks, it is not because you are weak, but because you are carrying something powerful. The enemy sees your potential even before you do. He knows that if you ever discover who you truly are, you will be unstoppable. So he starts early, trying to break you before you rise. Look at Joseph. He was just a young boy with a dream, but before he even had a chance to walk into his destiny, his own brothers turned against him. He didn't steal from them. He didn't harm them. He simply had a vision, and that was enough to provoke hatred. That is how the anointing works. Sometimes it exposes jealousy in the hearts of people close to you. You don't have to do anything wrong. Just your presence, just your calling, just your destiny is enough to make some people uncomfortable. Some of you are wondering why certain people walked out of your life. You are wondering why people you trusted suddenly turn against you. But let me tell you, some people are not fighting you. They are fighting what you carry. The enemy will use anyone he can to distract, discourage, and destroy what God has placed inside you. That's why Jesus warned his disciples that they would be hated, not because of what they did, but because of who they represented. When you are anointed, you will face opposition simply because of your assignments. And don't think the attacks will come only from enemies. Sometimes they come from those you love, those you least expect. The people who should support you, who should celebrate you, are the very ones who will try to bring you down. Why? Because when you are anointed, your presence alone convicts people who have settled for less. Instead of rising with you, they will try to keep you where they are. But you must not allow their opinions to determine your destiny. David was anointed as king while he was still a shepherd. He had no throne, no palace, no royal robe, yet the anointing on his life made Saul restless. Saul tried to kill him, not because David did anything wrong, but because the anointing on David's life exposed Saul's insecurity. When you are dangerously anointed, some people will try to destroy you before you take your rightful place. But here's what you must remember. The anointing does not just attract attacks. It also guarantees victory. Every battle you are facing right now is proof that you are carrying something valuable. The devil does not waste time on people who are not a threat. If you were not dangerous to his kingdom, he would leave you alone. But because you are anointed, because you have been chosen, because you are destined for greatness, the enemy is doing everything he can to stop you. So, what do you do when the attacks come? You stand firm, you do not retreat, you do not bow to pressure, because the God who anointed you is the same God who will protect you. The weapons may form, but they will not prosper. The enemy may rise, but he will not prevail. Every attack against you is just a sign that you are moving in the right direction. If you feel like you are in the middle of a battle, take heart. The attacks are not a sign of your weakness. They are a sign of your strength. You are dangerously anointed, and no force in hell can stop what God has placed inside you. Stand your ground, because your victory is already secured. There are moments in your life when you look back and wonder how you made it through. You should have failed, but you didn't. You should have been destroyed, but you survived. Others went through what you went through and never recovered, but somehow you are still standing. Let me tell you why. Because when you are anointed, you are divinely preserved. The anointing does not just empower you, it protects you. When God places his hand upon your life, no enemy, no circumstance, no attack can take you out before your time. The fact that you are still here is proof that there is something greater inside you. If the enemy had his way, you would not have woken up this morning. He tried to destroy you in your childhood. He tried to silence you in your struggle. He tried to break you with disappointment. But every time he thought he had you, God stepped in and preserved you. David was anointed as king while he was just a shepherd, but before he could wear the crown, he had to run for his life. Saul tried to kill him multiple times. He threw a spear at him, sent armies after him, hunted him down like a criminal. But no matter how many times Saul tried, David survived. Why? Because when you are anointed, your enemies can plan, they can strategize, they can attack, but they cannot succeed. They may come against you one way, but they will flee 7 ways. Some of you should have been counted out a long time ago. The depression should have taken you out. The betrayal should have crushed you. The financial struggle should have drowned you. But you are still here. You survived the worst seasons of your life. You cried, but you survived. You were broken, but you survived. And the reason is simple. The anointing on your life demands that you stay alive to fulfill your assignment. When the enemy knows he cannot kill you, he will try to make you quit. He will make you feel exhausted. He will try to convince you that you are too weak, too unworthy, too broken to continue. But let me remind you, if God has preserved you this far, he has no intention of leaving you now. His anointing is not just for power. It is for endurance. It is the reason you have walked through fire and did not burn, the reason you have been through storms and did not drown. You have been hit but not destroyed, shaken but not defeated. The enemy thought he buried you, but he didn't realize you were a seed. Look at Joseph. His own brothers threw him into a pit, sold him into slavery, lied about him, and tried to erase his future. But every time the enemy thought Joseph was finished, God lifted him higher. He was a slave, but he prospered. He was thrown into prison, but he found favor. Every attempt to destroy him only positioned him for greater. That is what happens when you are dangerously anointed. Nothing the enemy does can stop your destiny. There were people who thought you would never make it. They watched you struggle and they assumed you would never recover. But what they didn't realize is that you are not sustained by human strength. You are preserved by divine power. If God has called you, no sickness, no betrayal, no failure, no attack can remove you from his hand. You are protected not because of who you are, but because of what you carry. Some of you have survived things that should have ended you. You have walked through seasons where you didn't know how you would make it. But the anointing is like oil, causes you to slip out of the traps the enemy set for you. People thought they had you figured out, but you escaped. The enemy thought he had you cornered, but you slipped through. You were supposed to be another statistic, another casualty, another story of failure, but God kept you. If you are still standing today, it is because your assignment is not over. You are not here by accident. You are not here because of luck. You are here because God preserved you. And if he kept you then, he will keep you now. No matter what comes against you, no matter how fierce the battle, the anointing on your life guarantees that you will not fall before your time. You are dangerously anointed, and your destiny is secure. There will come a time in your life when you begin to notice that people you barely know seem to have a problem with you. People you have never harmed will go out of their way to speak against you. Individuals who once walked with you will suddenly turn against you for no reason at all. And you will wonder, what did I do? Why am I being attacked? But let me tell you, this is not about you. This is about what you carry. When you are dangerously anointed, You will attract destiny disruptors. These are people who see the hand of God on your life and cannot stand it. They don't know why they dislike you, but something about you makes them uncomfortable. Your very existence challenges them. Your dreams, your vision, your purpose expose their complacency. And instead of rising with you, they will try to bring you down. Look at Joseph. He was his father's beloved son, chosen and set apart. But before he could walk in his destiny, his own brothers hated him. They threw him into a pit, sold him into slavery, and convinced their father that he was dead, not because he harmed them, not because he did anything wrong, but because of the anointing on his life. His dreams made them uncomfortable. His favor provoked their jealousy. When you are anointed, you don't have to seek out enemies. Your calling will reveal them. There are people in your life right now who cannot explain why they don't like you. You've never disrespected them. You've never mistreated them, but something about you irritates them. Your excellence makes them insecure. Your success makes them uncomfortable. Your potential threatens them, and so instead of celebrating you, they try to destroy you. David was just a shepherd boy when he was anointed to be king. He was faithful, obedient, and humble. Yet as soon as the anointing was placed on him, trouble followed. He did not seek a battle with Saul, but Saul sought to kill him. Why? Because when you are anointed, people will see your future even before you do. Saul knew that David was chosen. He knew that David carried something greater, and instead of supporting him, he tried to eliminate him. That is what destiny disruptors do. They try to stop what God has already set in motion. Some of you are wondering why you face so much resistance. Why do people you once trusted suddenly turn on you? Why do opportunities seem to come with unexpected opposition? It is because you are carrying something powerful. The enemy is not fighting you because of where you are. He is fighting you because of where you are going. He is not intimidated by your present. He is terrified of your future. There were people in your life who smiled at you but secretly envied you. They clapped for you in public but spoke against you in private. And when they saw that they could not control you, they tried to destroy you. But hear me. What God has placed inside you cannot be stopped by human hands. When you are anointed, no lie, no betrayal, no attack can cancel what God has ordained. Some of you have been crying over people who walked away, but let me tell you something. Sometimes rejection is protection. If God allowed them to leave, it is because they could not go where He is taking you. Destiny disruptors only have power if you give them your attention. You must understand that their opposition is confirmation. If you were not a threat, they would leave you alone. If you were not carrying something valuable, they wouldn't bother you. Jesus himself was betrayed. He was hated, falsely accused, and rejected, not because he did anything wrong, but because of who he was. And yet, even in the face of opposition, he fulfilled his purpose. That is the power of the anointing. It does not stop because of resistance. It thrives in the face of adversity. So, if you find yourself surrounded by enemies, if you feel like you are constantly being fought, take heart. The battle is proof of your anointing. The resistance is confirmation of your calling. The disruptors are only present because you are dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Stand firm, stay focused, and remember this. What God has started in you, no enemy can stop. You are dangerously anointed, and your destiny is secured. There are moments in your life when you feel an overwhelming sense of responsibility, a weight that others don't seem to carry. You look around and wonder why no one else is concerned about what keeps you up at night. You see problems that others ignore. You feel an urgency in your spirit that others dismiss. And you ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Why can't I just live like everyone else? But let me tell you something. This is not a burden. This is a sign that you are dangerously anointed. When God places His anointing on your life, He gives you a divine burden, a passion, a calling, an assignment that separates you from the crowd. While others are comfortable, you are restless. While others accept things as they are, you feel a demand to change them. The anointing makes you different. It disrupts your comfort. It makes you dissatisfied with mediocrity. Look at Nehemiah. He was living well in the king's palace, serving as the royal cupbearer. He had no personal reason to worry about Jerusalem, but when he heard that the walls of his city were in ruins, he couldn't rest. He wept. He fasted. He prayed. Why? Because when you are anointed, God places a burden on your heart that won't let you settle. While others continue with life as usual, something inside you stirs. You see brokenness, and you feel called to restore. You see darkness, and you feel called to bring light. Some of you have been wondering why you can't seem to fit in. Why the conversations that excite others don't interest you. Why the things people chase after seem empty to you. It's because you are carrying something different. You are not like everyone else. You are set apart. What burdens others lightly sits heavy on you because your spirit is wired for a higher purpose. Moses grew up in Pharaoh's palace with every luxury available to him. He could have lived his entire life as an Egyptian prince, comfortable and privileged. But something inside him wouldn't let him ignore the suffering of his people. When he saw an Israelite being mistreated, something in him rose up. Why? Because when you are anointed, you can't ignore the thing God has called you to change. While others walk past the problem, you are drawn to it. You feel a responsibility that others do not. And here's the challenge. When you carry a divine burden, not everyone will understand. People will question why you care so much. They will tell you to let it go. They will call you extreme. But what they don't understand is that you didn't choose this burden. It chose you. When God anoints you, he plants a fire inside you that you cannot extinguish. Jeremiah said, it's like fire shut up in my bones. He wanted to be quiet, but he couldn't. He wanted to stay silent, but the burden was too strong. Some of you have tried to ignore your calling. You've tried to blend in. You've tried to silence the urgency in your spirit. But no matter how much you run, the anointing will not let you go. You were born for something greater. You were created to shift atmospheres, to change lives, to break chains. You were designed to bring heaven's will into the earth. And I must warn you, carrying a divine burden can be lonely. When Nehemiah decided to rebuild the walls, not everyone celebrated him. Some mocked him. Some plotted against him. Some tried to distract him. That's how you know your burden is from God, because the moment you step into it, resistance comes. When you are anointed, your burden attracts opposition. The enemy knows that if you complete what God has placed inside you, lives will be transformed. Generations will be impacted. Destinies will be changed. But let me remind you, if God gave you the burden, he will give you the strength to carry it. If he put the vision in you, he will provide the resources to fulfill it. If he called you, he will sustain you. You are not alone. You are not crazy for caring deeply. You are not foolish for believing in something greater. You are anointed. And the weight you feel is not a curse. It is a calling. So don't ignore your burden. Don't try to silence the fire inside you. The world needs what you carry. Someone's freedom is connected to your obedience. Someone's deliverance is tied to your yes. The enemy wants you to quit, but you cannot afford to give up because you are dangerously anointed, and what God has placed inside you cannot be stopped. There are moments in your life when things happen that you cannot explain. Doors open that should have remained shut. Opportunities come that you didn't even ask for. People are drawn to help you even when they don't know why. And you wonder, why me? How did this happen? But let me tell you, this is not luck. This is not coincidence. This is the favor of God that follows those who are dangerously anointed. When you are anointed, you do not have to chase opportunities. Opportunities find you. While others struggle to gain access, you walk into places that others never imagined possible. While others are denied, you are accepted. While others are ignored, you are recognized. And it is not because of your connections, your qualifications, or your background. It is because of the divine favor that comes with obedience. Look at Joseph. He was a slave in a foreign land. He had no status, no wealth, no family to defend him. And yet, wherever he went, favor followed him. In Potiphar's house, he was put in charge. In prison, he was given authority. And when the time was right, Pharaoh called him out of a dungeon and placed him in a palace. Joseph never had to manipulate his way into success. He didn't have to beg for an opportunity. His obedience positioned him, and God's favor elevated him. That is what happens when you are dangerously anointed. What others strive for comes to you effortlessly, not because you are better, but because you are chosen. You may not have the right degree, the right experience, or the right connections, but when you are anointed, favor will make up the difference. David was a shepherd boy, forgotten by his own family. When the prophet Samuel came to anoint the next king, David was not even invited into the room. But when God's favor is on your life, no one can ignore you. They had to send for David because God's anointing cannot be overlooked. He did not fight for a seat at the table. God reserved it for him. Some of you have been striving, trying to make things happen in your own strength. You have been pushing, fighting, struggling to be seen, to be heard, to be chosen. But hear me. When you are anointed, you do not have to force your way into destiny. The doors that are meant for you will open at the right time. The opportunities that belong to you will not pass you by. And let me warn you, when favor begins to manifest in your life, not everyone will celebrate you. Some will question how you got where you are. They will try to figure out your secret, but they will never understand, because favor is not something you can explain. It is something only God can give. The same people who ignored you yesterday will wonder why you are being elevated today. The same people who doubted you will have to watch God bless you in ways they cannot comprehend. Look at Esther. She was an orphan, an outsider with no claim to royalty. And yet, when God's favor was upon her, she was chosen to be queen. Out of all the women in the kingdom, she was the one who found favor with the king. Not because she was the most qualified, but because God's hand was upon her. That is what favor does. It makes a way where there is no way. It turns rejection into elevation. It takes the overlooked and places them in positions of influence. And when it is your time, no one can stop what God is doing. Some of you have been waiting for an opportunity, waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for a door to open. But I came to tell you, your obedience is positioning you for uncommon favor. Keep walking in integrity. Keep honoring God. Keep being faithful where you are, because at the right time, favor will locate you. You don't have to manipulate. You don't have to strive. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. When you are dangerously anointed, doors open that no man can shut. People help you without even knowing why. Opportunities come that you didn't even ask for, because favor is not something you earn. It is something God gives. God does not, and when he places his hand upon your life, no one can stop what he has ordained. So don't be discouraged by delays. Don't be frustrated by closed doors. The right door will open at the right time. And when it does, you will know that it was not by your might, not by your power, but by the Spirit of God, because you are dangerously anointed, and no force in this world can stand against the favor that follows you. There will come a time when you will walk through battles that do not make sense. Attacks will come from places you never expected. You will face storms that seem designed to take you out. And you will wonder, why is this happening? Why am I going through this? But let me tell you, this is not about you. This is about what you carry. When you are dangerously anointed, spiritual warfare is inevitable. The enemy does not fight what does not threaten him. If you were not a threat, the opposition would not come. If you were not carrying something powerful, the attacks would not be this intense. The warfare is not about your past. It is about your future. It is about the destiny you are stepping into, the impact you are about to make, the souls that will be transformed because of your obedience. Look at Job. He was a righteous man, faithful, favored, blessed. And yet he suffered losses that seemed unbearable. He lost his wealth, his health, his children. His own friends questioned him. His own wife told him to curse God and die. But what Job did not realize was that his battle was not just about him. It was about proving that a man could trust God even when everything was taken away. His suffering had a purpose, and when the season was over, God restored him with double. Some of you are in a battle right now, and you don't understand why. You have been faithful, you have been obedient, and yet you are facing resistance on every side. But hear me, this is not punishment. This is preparation. The warfare is proof that you are carrying something significant. The attack is confirmation that your destiny is too great for the enemy to ignore. David was anointed as king, but before he sat on the throne, he spent years running for his life. Saul, the very man he once served, became his greatest enemy, not because David did anything wrong, but because of what he carried. The anointing on his life provoked warfare, and that is what happens when you are dangerously anointed. Before you walk in the fullness of your calling, you must go through a season of refining. But let me remind you, though the enemy may attack, he cannot destroy what God has ordained. The weapons may form, but they will not prosper. The battle may rage, but the victory is already secured. Because when you are anointed, you are not fighting alone. Heaven is backing you. The angels are surrounding you. The hand of God is covering you. Some of you have been asking God, why is this happening to me? But the real question is, what is this battle preparing me for? Because every attack, every storm, every challenge is shaping you for something greater. The warfare is not breaking you, it is building you. The fire is not consuming you, it is refining you. The battle is not delaying you, it is positioning you. Joseph's betrayal was painful, but it was necessary. If his brothers had never sold him, he would have never reached Egypt. If he had never been thrown into prison, he would have never stood before Pharaoh. What looked like a setback was actually a setup for his elevation. And when the time came, Joseph was able to say, what you meant for evil, God turned for good. That is what happens when you are dangerously anointed. Your battles do not break you, they make you. What the enemy sends to destroy you, God uses to promote you. The storm that was meant to drown you, God uses to lift you higher. The very thing that was meant to stop you becomes the thing that accelerates you. So do not be discouraged by the battle. Do not be weary in the fight. This warfare is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that you are winning. It is a sign that you are stepping into new levels, new dimensions, new territories. The greater the anointing, the greater the opposition. But the greater the opposition, the greater the victory. And when the battle is over, you will look back and realize that everything the enemy tried to use against you only made you stronger. The pain made you wiser. The rejection made you resilient. The hardship increased your faith. And you will see that you were never alone, because you are dangerously anointed and no battle can stop what God has placed inside of you. My friends, if there is one thing I want you to take from this, it is that you are not ordinary. You were never meant to blend in. never meant to live a life of mediocrity. The weight you feel, the struggles you face, the opposition that rises against you, it is all proof that you are dangerously anointed. You carry something powerful. You have been chosen for a divine purpose. Yes, the burden is heavy, but it is necessary. Yes, the journey is lonely, but it is worth it. Yes, the battles are intense, but they are only making you stronger. The anointing on your life will set you apart. It will open doors no man can shut. It will bring favor that cannot be explained. And yes, it will attract warfare, but no weapon formed against you will prosper. So stand firm. Keep pressing forward. Do not let fear hold you back. Do not let opposition discourage you. The world needs what you carry. Your assignment is too important. Your calling is too great. And in the end, you will see that every tear, every sacrifice, every struggle was preparing you for something far greater than you imagined. Go forth with boldness. Walk in your anointing. Trust in the one who called you, because your best days are ahead, and nothing can stop what God has placed inside of you. Good luck, and may God bless you. Thank you.